when some said, I'm sorry, apartheid is here to stay, and others said no, it changed. Some said the Cold War is here to stay. I remember when the Berlin Wall came down. So there will always be moments when we look back in history when the impossible did not seem possible. But the whole point of diplomatic endeavour is to persevere, and you are failing every day until you succeed.
Given that Israel has fully blocked the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza now for over 50 days and continued to target the civilian infrastructure, can you tell the committee what steps the UK government is taking to prevent further humanitarian suffering being inflicted on the civilian population in Gaza?
Well, let me be crystal clear. The blockade that Israel is undertaking now of necessary aid into Gaza is horrendous. The suffering is dire. The need is huge. The loss of life is extreme. And we have been absolutely clear, and just last week with as an E3 alongside France and Germany, we were very clear in our statement condemning the blockade that exists at this time and the need that we see in Gaza.
I've just seen the letter you wrote yesterday to the chairman of this committee. In it you say, the Israeli decision to block aid supplies and power in this way is intolerable and risks breaching international humanitarian law. Humanitarian aid should never be used as a political tool. Why risks? It is breaking humanitarian law, surely. Action has to be more than criticising the Israeli government. We've been doing that for a long time. It doesn't lead to any changes.
I have taken action. The first day I was in office, I instigated a review on our arms sales to Israel. And with regret, I announced in Parliament back last September that we would not be continuing to supply arms that Israel can use in Gaza because I believed, on the basis of our export licensing regime that was set up actually or revised under the last government, that there was a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law. That's the criteria I used against that sober assessment that was made. At that time, the last government, and the last time I saw that Lord Cameron was before this committee, the committee pressed him on restoring funding to UNRWA. I restored funding to UNRWA. There were concerns about just how much aid and commitment we were giving to Gaza. I increased our spend in Gaza, notwithstanding the issues about the aid actually getting in. So I have acted.
On the subject of breaking international humanitarian law, what position is the government currently taking on the judgments of the international courts on this matter?
Well, it is a judgment for international courts, but we have been crystal clear in our own commitment to international humanitarian law. We continue to support organisations like the ICC and the ICJ, although I recognise that that is now politically contested by some.
Netanyahu has now spelt out beyond any doubt for anyone who was in any doubt that he hasn't the slightest intention of agreeing to a two-state solution. So I really want to put it to you. Does this foreign policy objective, consistent over so long, any longer have any possibility of realistically being a solution?
Well, let's step back first of all and let me be frank about the kind of person I am. I've been in public life now 25 years, and I suppose it's possible to get to this level in public life and find yourself in cynical indisposition, but I retain the optimism that I arrived in Parliament with. I remember those bombs exploding that killed so many lives because of the problems and the troubles in Northern Ireland, and in the end, with cross-party consensus and a lot of hard work, we got there. So we can get there too on a two-state solution. And what are the ingredients and how do we get there on a two-state solution? Well, again, let's give the current President of the United States some credit for the Abraham Accords, and let's continue to press hard to get to Saudi-Israel normalization. And on any analysis, it's hard to see how you achieve that prize of normalization without two states. Let's focus on what we can do to give Israel the assurance that it needs in relation to Hamas. Let us continue to bear down on Iran's nuclear ambitions, which would be devastating for the Middle East, and let's continue to support those within the occupied territories who still believe in, obviously, a home of their own. And I've always said the Palestinian cause is a just cause, but want to live alongside Israel. That means you must continue to support the Palestinian Authority. And as I say, I signed a memorandum of understanding with Prime Minister Mustafa this week. All of that gives me hope.
That it is within the Labour Party's manifesto to recognise the state of Palestine. It is something that the United Kingdom could do. It's something which 160-odd states across the world have already done. When is that likely to be achieved?
Let me be clear. No one has a veto on when the United Kingdom recognises that Palestinian state. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I recognise that there are some who see this as symbolic, and there are countries in Europe that have taken this step recently. But on another set of questions I got from the committee, whilst it was a symbolic act, you've got to ask yourself, did it change much on the ground? And the sad conclusion is, it didn't. And so we have always said that recognition is not the end in of itself. Two states is the end in of itself. And we would prefer recognition as part of a process to that two states. But I should say to you, because this is important, settlement expansion at the moment is undermining the viability of two states, and settler violence levels are shocking. In the last year, we've had 59 illegal outposts on the West Bank. There were 59 established in 2024. The average was 7 over the last 25 years. So that is all undermining the prospects of two states, and it's why I announced sanctions on some of that settler behaviour a few months ago.